The laugh track from the television sputtered and died when Qley muted it. The silence that followed was heavy, like someone had pulled the plug on the entire apartment. Mark was halfway through standing up, a goodnight kiss on his lips, when he caught the look on her face. Not angry. Not sad. Something else, something sharp, like she had rehearsed this moment, and was finally pressing play. "Sit for a second," she said. He sat. His chest was already tightening, though she hadn't spoken another word. Qley always had a way of making small statements feel like verdicts. Her voice was calm when it came, but too calm. "I like you, Mark. I really do. But I'm not in love with you." No explosion followed. No dramatic speech, no tears. Just that line, balanced perfectly on the edge of kindness and cruelty. Mark's brain, trained to process numbers and systems all day, automatically filed the words like data in a spreadsheet. Input: she likes me. Input: she is not in love with me. Output: undefined. For a moment, he considered asking why. Demanding an explanation, a backstory, a reason that fit into a column of logic. But something in the way she sat back on the couch, remote still in her hand like a judge holding a gavel, told him that she wasn't expecting questions. She was expecting a scene. Instead, he gave her nothing. He blinked once, twice, and then said very softly, "Okay." It landed like a pebble in a deep well, quiet, unremarkable, and somehow final. He stood, adjusted his shirt like he was clocking out of a shift, and walked toward the hallway. The carpet under his feet felt unfamiliar, as if he was already in someone else's home. He could feel her eyes on his back, waiting for a plea, a fight, anything that proved her words had power. She didn't get it. Mark's bedroom door closed with a sound that wasn't quite a slam but wasn't gentle either. Qley stayed on the couch, staring at the frozen faces on the TV screen. Her thumb hovered over her phone, and within seconds, the faint buzz of notifications filled the apartment. She had delivered her news. Now came the validation from the outside world. Mark lay in bed, eyes fixed on the ceiling, listening to her whispered laughter through the wall. What she didn't know, what she couldn't know yet, was that her careful downgrade hadn't left him wounded. It had triggered something else entirely. Something precise. Something permanent. The next morning unfolded with the same choreography as always, yet every movement felt rewritten. Mark rose at 6, showered, and dressed for work in his usual unhurried rhythm. But when he entered the kitchen, Qley was already there, perched on the counter with a mug in her hands. It wasn't her mug. It was his, the one she always borrowed, because she liked the way it fit her grip. Normally, that small theft would have made him smile. Now, it felt like evidence of how easily she claimed what was his without asking. "Morning," she said, voice light, testing. Mark nodded once, opened the cupboard, and retrieved a different mug. He poured coffee into it, filled a thermos with the rest, and set the empty pot back on the burner. His routine had shifted by a fraction, and she noticed. He could feel her eyes track the absence of the gesture he had given her every day for 2 years. "You didn't make extra?" she asked after a pause. He turned, leaning against the counter. "Thought you might want to make it the way you like it. You always say I brew it too strong." His tone was even, polite. Almost friendly. Her lips parted, but no reply came. She just nodded and looked down into the swirl of dark liquid in his mug. On the outside, it was nothing, just coffee. On the inside, Mark recognized it as the first adjustment, the smallest step in a much larger reprogramming. He had spent his career identifying weak links in complex systems. Now he saw one in front of him, wearing his shirt and sipping from his cup. When he left for work, he offered her a quiet, "Have a good day." No kiss, no warmth. Just a courtesy, the kind you give to a neighbor in an elevator. Driving to the office, he felt no rage. No heartbreak. Only clarity. Qley's revelation had done something strange. It had not broken him, it had freed him. By declaring herself not in love, she had unknowingly stripped away the very fuel that kept him pouring into her life. The engine had shut off, and he was no longer obligated to keep it running. That night, as he unlocked the door and stepped back into the apartment, he could sense the shift in the air. Qley had cooked dinner. She almost never cooked. The smell of garlic and basil floated out to greet him, but beneath it lingered something sharper, expectation. She was waiting to see if her downgrade had left her in control. She was about to find out. The dinner sat between them like a truce offering, pasta, salad, even a bottle of wine Qley must have dug out from the back of the cupboard. She twirled noodles onto her fork with deliberate slowness, glancing at him between bites as though waiting for a cue. Mark ate quietly, methodically. The food was fine, but that wasn't the point. He could feel the weight of her eyes, the silent plea behind her casual smile. She wanted him to bridge the gap, to pretend nothing had changed. Halfway through the meal, she broke. "I don't like this," Qley said suddenly, dropping her fork onto the plate with a metallic clatter. "You're acting different." Mark dabbed his mouth with a napkin, calm as ever. "Am I? I'm just giving you what you said you wanted." "I never said I wanted you to shut me out," she shot back, her voice cracking. "I said I wasn't in love. That doesn't mean I don't care about you." The words hit him like static, loud but without substance. He studied her across the table, her shoulders tight, her eyes shining with something between frustration and fear. In that moment, he felt the first real flicker of temptation. Not to forgive, not to fight, but to fall back into the pattern. To rescue her from the discomfort she had created. He had built his identity around being her anchor, her safety net. The muscle memory was still there, urging him to reach across the table, to soften. Instead, he set his fork down. "Care," he said quietly, "is not the same as love." The sentence hung in the room, heavier than any argument. Qley blinked, stunned, as though hearing her own logic turn back on her for the first time. The silence that followed was suffocating. Mark pushed his chair back and carried his plate to the sink. He rinsed it, dried it, and placed it neatly on the rack. Routine. Precision. Control. Behind him, he heard her chair scrape. "So what, that's it? You're just done?" Mark turned, towel in hand, and looked at her. Not with anger. Not with bitterness. With something far more unsettling, calm certainty. "No," he said. "I'm just finished being someone you can downgrade." It was the first time he had said anything close to final, and the words shifted the air between them. Qley's face crumpled, not in anger this time, but in something closer to panic. For the first time, she seemed to realize she might lose him. The days that followed were eerily polite. Mark maintained his routines with surgical precision, coffee brewed for one, meals portioned only for his needs, evenings spent at the gym, or behind the glow of his laptop. Qley tried to puncture the silence, but every attempt collapsed against his even, impenetrable calm. By the third week, the cracks in her composure were visible. She lingered near him, hovering in doorways with meaningless chatter, laughing too loudly at nothing, leaving little messes for him to notice. He acknowledged her with nods, with the same pleasant distance you'd give a coworker at the water cooler. One evening, she made her move. Mark came home to find candles flickering on the dining table, soft music playing from her phone. Qley stood in one of his old shirts, bare legs crossed, a glass of wine in her hand. "Remember when we used to do this?" she asked softly. "Just the two of us, no phones, no distractions." Mark set his gym bag down, scanning the scene like an investigator. Every detail was deliberate, the lighting, the smell of takeout, the shirt chosen for nostalgia. For a heartbeat, he almost admired the strategy. "You put effort into this," he said finally. His tone wasn't mocking, it was worse. Neutral. Detached. Her smile faltered. "I'm trying, Mark. I don't want us to end like this." He pulled out a chair and sat, folding his hands on the table. "Then maybe you shouldn't have ended it first." Her face strained of color. "That's not what I meant." "I was scared. I thought honesty was better than pretending. But I didn't want to lose you." For the first time, Mark leaned forward. "You didn't lose me because you told the truth. You lost me because you wanted the benefits without the cost. You wanted love's comforts, but not love itself. That's not honesty, Qley. That's convenience." Her eyes filled, but he didn't look away. The silence stretched, charged, thick with the weight of something irreversible. When he finally stood, her hand shot out, catching his wrist. "Please," she whispered, voice raw. "Don't do this. I need you." Mark looked down at her grip, then back into her eyes. "You don't need me," he said quietly. "You need what I used to give you. And that's already gone." The words left her trembling. And for the first time since this began, Mark felt something stir in him, not love, not hate. Finality. The stage for the collapse was set. The envelope sat on the kitchen counter when Qley came home. Mark had left it there deliberately, its edges squared to the grain of the wood, impossible to ignore. She picked it up, hands trembling. Inside was the lease renewal, blank but for their names typed neatly at the top. When Mark walked in moments later, gym bags slung over his shoulder, her face was pale. "What is this?" she demanded, holding the paper like evidence in a trial. "Our lease," he said evenly, setting his bag down. "It's up in a month. So? We'll just sign again," she said quickly, too quickly, like she could outrun the dread rising in her throat. "I won't," Mark replied. His voice was calm, almost kind. "I've already signed for a new place. 1 bedroom. Closer to work." The words detonated in the silence. Qley's lips parted, but nothing came. Then, all at once, the dam broke. "You can't just leave!" she cried, slamming the paper on the counter. "This is our home. You can't just throw it away like it's nothing." Mark stepped closer, the weight of his presence filling the room. "I'm not throwing anything away. You already did. You told me, Qley. You weren't in love. I believed you." Tears blurred her vision. She shook her head, desperate. "I didn't mean it like that. I was scared. I thought if I said it, I'd feel freer. But I don't. I just feel empty. I miss us. I miss you." For a flicker of a second, she thought she saw softness in his eyes. A crack in the wall. But it vanished as quickly as it came. "No," he said. "You don't miss me. You miss the man who cooked for you, who paid your bills, who carried you through life. But that man was in love. And you told him he didn't exist anymore." Her sobs echoed in the kitchen, raw and unrestrained. She reached for him, fingers brushing his arm, but he stepped back. From his pocket, Mark pulled out a small box and placed it on the counter. Her breath caught, wild hope flashing through her tears. Her hands shook as she opened it. Not a ring. A single silver key. "This is to my new apartment," he said. His voice was steady, final. "I move in on the 1st. The box slipped from her hands and hit the floor with a hollow thud. In that sound, Qley finally understood. The man she had demoted was gone, and there would be no promotion left to fight for. The apartment was quieter than ever in the days that followed. Not the comfortable quiet of two people sharing space, but the hollow kind, like a stage after the actors had left, props still scattered under the lights. Mark lived in transition. Boxes stacked neatly in his office, drawers emptied one at a time, receipts and keys sorted into small labeled envelopes. He moved with the discipline of someone dismantling a machine, each step efficient, deliberate. Qley watched the process unfold like a slow erasure. Every item he packed was another reminder of how little she had actually owned in this life they built. The lamp in the corner, the kitchen knives, the desk she worked at, all his. She had contributed laughter, affection, soft declarations that had once felt real. But laughter doesn't pay for couches, and affection doesn't keep the lights on. One night, unable to stand the silence, she spoke from the doorway of his half-empty office. "Do you hate me?" Mark didn't look up from the box he was taping shut. "No, then why does this feel like punishment?" Finally, he raised his eyes. They weren't cold, but they weren't soft either. "Because you're confusing consequences with cruelty. I'm not punishing you, Qley. I'm just accepting what you told me. You wanted a man who wasn't in love with you. Now you have one." She pressed her forehead against the doorframe, shoulders shaking. "I didn't think it would feel like this." Mark smoothed the tape along the box and set it aside. "Neither did I." The night before he left, he placed the last of his things by the door. The apartment looked bigger, emptier. Qley sat on the couch, knees pulled to her chest, staring at the muted television screen. For the first time, there were no words left between them. When morning came, Mark lifted the final box and paused. He looked at her one last time, not with anger, not with regret, but with something cleaner. Release. "Take care of yourself," he said simply. Then he stepped into a hallway, the door clicking shut behind him. Inside, Qley sat in the silence she had once mistaken for freedom. Outside, Mark walked into the bright morning air, carrying nothing heavier than his own certainty. And just like that, the system was shut down, quietly, completely, and without a single error left to correct.